Hey everyone, developer of FFB-Bridge here. I wanted to make a quick video today talking about some improvements I've made to the software to deal with MOZA bases. So if you're someone who has a MOZA base, either the AB6, the AB9, or the AY210, you've run into this issue. The issue is that both MOZA Cockpit and FFB-Bridge kind of have to work together, and you got to make settings in MOZA Cockpit to have FFB-Bridge correctly recognize the stick and do what it needs to do. The other issue you've probably run into, and I know some users have, is that if you have a Mac or a Linux machine, you can't just plug the stick in and start using it with FFB-Bridge, because you have to go into MOZA Cockpit first and make a couple of changes, and only then can you plug it into your Linux and Mac machine. So that's obviously a pain for if you don't have like multiple computers. So what I've done is I've tried to fix all of that, and I just demonstrate it here. So let's just start up. Here's MOZA Cockpit running, nothing special or fancy, just standard MOZA Cockpit. What I've done is I've created a profile with extreme settings, which would never work, right? So force feedback is disabled. The force feedback mode, as you know, should be direct input, but I've set it to integrated FFB, and I've just gone through and set pretty much every slider to this. So the current in the current version of FFB-Bridge, this would not work. It would just, and it won't tell you why it's not working. It would just not work, and then it's up to you to go and figure out, oh, what did I make? What did I change? And I've had reports from users that, they checked this for some reason and then they forgot, or all sorts of things, right? There's a lot of things that can happen, and it's not fair to ask the user to try and figure all that out. So now what FFB-Bridge does is when it starts up, it looks for MOZA Cockpit. If MOZA Cockpit is running, it asks the user to shut it down. It will not shut Cockpit itself, because that is not correct from a user's perspective. You shouldn't have FFB-Bridge taking autonomous actions like that. And then once you shut it down, it will then write the settings to the stick that it needs for it to work correctly with FFB-Bridge. This happens completely transparently and seamlessly in the background. You don't need to do anything. You just let it do its thing. Then when you quit MOZA FFB-Bridge after you've finished your session of flying, it will then restore whatever the settings were on the stick when it started up. It saves a copy. So whatever your profile is in the MOZA Cockpit, you may have got it set up maybe for a completely different game, maybe whatever it is. FFB-Bridge reads that on startup, saves a copy of that inside its own folder, and then restores that profile to the stick when FFB-Bridge quits. So from MOZA's perspective, from the MOZA Cockpit software perspective, nothing changes, right? It's as if it was shut down for a little while and you start up again. So this whole process, it makes it a lot easier to deal with the MOZA sticks. And it has a nice benefit of, on Mac and Linux, you no longer need MOZA Cockpit whatsoever, because FFB-Bridge just manages it. Of course, you still need MOZA to deal with all the other settings that it has, and I'm not getting into that, and to update firmware. So this is not a replacement for MOZA Cockpit. It just helps you use it a bit better. So let's just start it up first. So the first thing you'll see is the detection. MOZA Cockpit is running, so FFB-Bridge will not proceed till you shut it down, and it tells you to shut it down. So again, this is what's set up, right? So this would not work. And just make note of a few things. Force feedback is disabled, integrated FFB, and kind of all the sliders are in here. Let's quit that now. So once you quit, give it a second for it to fully exit, and then hits check again. Now I know that went by fast, but essentially what it says, it's detected MOZA hardware, it's saving a copy of the settings, and it's setting it up correctly for FFB-Bridge. At this point now, even though within Cockpit we had force feedback disabled and all the sliders were in all the wrong places, that doesn't matter anymore. If you go to flight check, and I can't show you this because I don't have a camera set up, so you just try it out on your own system. But if you go to flight check, and I'll start something which makes a noise. I don't know if you can hear that, but it is working essentially. And everything works as you'd expect. Cyclic damping, force trim, everything just works. And again, you don't need to do anything. Then, after you finished your session, you close it and you quit. And again, it restores those settings. The message essentially said that. So now if we start up MOZA Cockpit again, it should look exactly like it did when we switched it off. All the settings should be the same. And you'll see that in a second. So there you go. So it disables force feedback. It sets this back to integrated, and it makes whatever was there. It just writes everything back, right? And of course, if you've got MOZA Cockpit itself set up to like switch presets or do something within that, continues to work just as it did. The only thing FFB-Bridge does is it takes whatever the stick status was when it starts up and just make sure it leaves the stick in exactly that same state when it quits. If FFB-Bridge crashes or you lose power or something like that, then obviously that doesn't happen. But if that is the case, you can either just restart FFB-Bridge. It will go through that process and make sure it saves that copy of the file, right? So it'll write it again. Or you can just start MOZA Cockpit and load your save profile. Either way would work. So it doesn't really matter. But yeah, that's about it. So from now on, if this works correctly, and I'm putting this out for all of you to test with all your various sticks, if this works correctly, you just don't have to think about MOZA Cockpit anymore. Just start up FFB-Bridge, use FFB-Bridge, and then quit it. And in the background, everything just gets taken care of. And again, on Mac and Linux, it's much easier now. You no longer need a Windows machine to sort of bootstrap this base into the state that it needed to be for Mac and Linux. It should just work. I haven't tested every last edge case right now, so since putting this video out, you guys test it. Let me know how it goes. Thanks very much.